I have so much to talk about that I would just railroad the whole episode. So I have a few things I want to talk to you about first before I just talk about me for a whole bunch. How was the podcast convention?
It was tiring, overwhelming. Certainly on day one, it was a lot. And oof. I've weird relationships sometimes with those conferences. Like if I'm not with someone, I can feel very alone. Very quickly, because I have this sense that like everyone's off doing fun convention things with people they know and stuff, and I always end up feeling, and I feel that very, very deeply. But then when the opposite is also completely true. So, I met a couple of people from, our space, or from, the space that you and I used to occupy. Yeah. And that was lovely, and there were a couple of people who were actually like, they had to zoom off to other things, but they just stopped by where I was. They saw me and just popped by to say hello and then had to rush off. And that felt lovely. That, someone just took the time just to do that. And so, I sort of very much go on the extremes. I can feel alone in a crowd very easily, but when there's someone I know a little bit, I'm like, yay, and I fully feel sort of into the conference life. Thursday was much brighter. I got to have lots of conversations and meet people that I hadn't met before, and one of them being someone we've talked on this show about before, a gentleman called Rory Sutherland, of whom I think quite highly, and who I believe is going to be a guest on List Envy in September.
Amazing.
Because I saw him talk, and then I managed to go up and squeeze his hand and have a couple of words. And coming back from the conference back to Brighton on the Thursday was a nightmare due to train issues, and then I ended up with a virus. And only a little one, but it was a real bugger of a one. But landed safely back on Friday night, back home with the cats, recouped, and did some good thinking, got a good handle on things, decided that List Envy is my main princess rather than my side piece, which feels great. And so very happy about all of those things.
Amazing. So I came back from my I was just on my camping trip.
Yeah, you were.
I was thinking about you many times, but one thing that really struck me was that we had this conversation about our birthdays, and we talked about your 40th birthday plan and how it didn't ultimately go to plan. And I thought about how your next birthday is your 42nd birthday.
Yeah, it is.
The life, the universe, and everything birthday. Like it's
big number birthday. Yeah.
It's a bigger number than 40 to me. Like it's obviously it's two more, but it's also maybe your plan didn't work out for 40, but I was wondering if either when you come here or back home with your people, like maybe try again and maybe like make it happen, because that like the plan for your birthday is dope, and it's what you wanted to. I mean, it's what you wanted to do. I don't know if it's still what you want to do, but it was what you wanted to do, and with I don't know, the energy that I've been putting into planning for my own birthday, which is like the first time I've really planned my own birthday party. It feels so good, and I'm so excited about it. And I guess I just want that for you too. So yeah. So if you wanted, we could find a space here and a piano and like make a little plan. And, like, I got a bunch of friends that sing, and we could just have
I don't think I can stay for an additional 2 months.
No, I mean early. Like it would be an early part, like within the time frame that you've already. I'm not saying extend for another 2 months. No.
I think that might
I would love that, but no.
That might become wearing on both of us. No. Thank you. That's really cool. I think I kind of like the idea of having no plans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd love to just like go somewhere and see what happens, kind of thing. Or maybe not unlike your Vision Quest, go on a giant ass walk, and get lost somewhere, and maybe walk to somewhere that would be edifying or interesting or rewarding or something.
For sure.
There's the whole 10-hour walk thing or 12-hour walk thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I like the idea of not, because in that very Buddhist way, like the problem is really just the attachment to the idea.
Yeah.
I would like to have less attachment.
That's great.
And allow for what might happen to happen.
Yeah.
If it does.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I like that.
So, thank you.
So,
so here we go.
Vision I quested, and quest was granted. Wow, dude. Okay, so I can't remember if I talked about where I went before, but let's just say. So I've been kind of, it's an amazing place, and I've been a little bit sworn to secrecy about it now. So I'm just going to call it like Darkenshrub, instead of it's whatever I may have called it before. Oh my God. Okay, so there is a resort in this place, and I did not go to the resort. And resort, like you typically think of like the big hotel and like. Very fancy and stuff. It's a bunch of shacks, but they've made up really nice shacks. But outside of that, there is a campground across the river, the Darkenshrub River, and there's at the campground.
Can we? Why the swearing to sequence?
Great.
Sequence?
It is. There's. I mean, I'll kind of get to it. There's like, it's precious. It's kind of.
So you don't want other people to go?
Yeah, exactly. I want to keep it quiet.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
go.
Like not everybody is as respectful of the land of the space as we would like, and some people aren't cool, and they just kind of like throw shit around, and like it's not ideal. People are gonna people. So I get there. So it's Memorial Day weekend, which is a fairly big, beginning of summer holiday here, and a lot of people like go out camping, go grilling, and that kind of thing. I wasn't thinking about that at all when I planned the timing of this. I just picked a time where I thought I was going to be in between projects, and it actually worked out perfectly. Amazing. I'm actually doing the same project, but 2 different phases of the same project, and it still worked out. But so I get there a couple days before the weekend, and the campground is empty. There's like 25 spaces, and I'm one of 3, and I see 5 other people in 3 days, and I felt so alone. It was incredibly beautiful nature, so much around. It was just the river is running right by my camp spot, and it was just heaven. And then which is funny, so I'm thinking of it as a whole picture. The first 2 days, pouring down rain, cold, just unfun. I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Because I was just talking to, because after the arbitration, Margaret and I was having a conversation with Margaret about how, okay, it didn't go our way, but we still have each other, we have our house, we have food, and we have music. Like, we have everything we need, the 4 basic food groups, the 4 essentials. And then I go on this vision quest, and I don't have Margaret. I don't have my home. I am fasting, so I don't have food, and I'm techno fasting, so I don't have music either. And I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm just deprived. And I hate this. I hate this. I hate everything around me. I hate myself. I just And then day 3. Well, okay, so on day 2, day 1, I get there at like 4 or 5 or whatever after I do some work in another town, and then I try to set up a campfire, which is super hard in the pouring rain. And I didn't bring any fire starters. I didn't bring any paper. I didn't bring any cardboard. I didn't bring anything burnable. So I'm just like shaving this wood down with my axe that I thankfully brought, and making these little curly cues of wood. And I finally I use a candle I brought for seances. And the wax on the wood makes it really kind of burnable a little bit. It's kind of a little hack I found. I only used it the once because then I found better ways, but I got the fire going, so that was good. Warmed up a little bit, got to sleep. Tent's kind of leaky, and just I'm super cold. It's awful. The next day, I go to the hot springs. Now, I had already been prepped on kind of how it looked. So this is an area. So the Darkenshrub resort used to be down in this area, and then in the 60s, and then the 70s it burned down. There's a big forest fire, and they moved up on the top of the hill and made a bigger area up there. And so this area has just been left, and has been left as a public hot spring. And so there's when you walk up to it, it looks like the ruins of Hayden's Wall, just kind of like foundation walls just around, and then crossed with the Roman baths in Bath. Like, it was just because you've got the hot springs coming out, they're all a bunch of filled pools and everything. And so there's a couple tubs down by the river is going right next to it, and there's a couple clawfoot tubs that are like down closer to the river. One of them is kind of eroded away and not really usable. Another one is there and fine, but there was no water going to it, and I didn't know how to make the water go to it. So I just used the what looks like the foundation of a house with no house atop of it, pool, and 2 of them were tiled and kind of looked okay, but they're like really grungy and grimy from being outside and for 50 years. And there's a bunch of hoses coming from a larger pool up high that have like siphoned pressure coming down. So there's hot water coming out through these just garden hoses that are laying around on top of these foundation walls. And so you put them where you want to, and it starts filling up with hot water, and it's great. And so that day it's still pouring down rain, and I didn't know where the hot springs were yet. I thought I had heard that they were walkable. There's no real information about them online, which we're going to try and keep that way. And so I was just walking around, and I walk for like where the direction I think they are, kind of. Also, I kind of the only direction I think there might be somebody to be able to ask. And I'm walking uphill for like 2 miles in the pouring rain. I'm already soaking. Like, I put on my soaking wet clothes from the day before, because I'm like, well, I'm already soaking wet, so I might as well still be soaking wet and not waste another.
How much more wet are you going to get? Yeah, there is a maximum wetness.
Yeah, exactly. I'm already wet and cold. It's not going to get any more wet and cold. I don't want to waste another outfit on getting it too wet. I'm not going to be able to wear that. And so I'm just drenched, and I'm walking uphill, and a sheriff pulls up next to me, and I'm just like, "Hey, do you know where the hot springs are?" And he's like looking at me like, "What are you doing, dude? It is cold and pouring. Where's your car?" Anyway, it's up here a quarter mile, and you'll go here and here and whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. And I just kept walking. And I was like, I just wanted to look at the burned down forest.
Yeah,
exactly. I forgive you. May you forgive me. I forgive myself. So then I get up to the air, right about where the path starts, and the sheriff drives back again. And I'm at this point, I'm just kind of like, I'm in it, I'm miserable, and I'm just kind of going, and I'm looking around, but I'm not really like thinking about, oh, there's probably a path soon. I should look out for that. And he comes up and he's like, there it is. He's just like pulls up right at the right time where the path is like 20 feet from me. And he's like, there it is. And I look over and I just see a burned down forest. I don't see any path. And he's like, oh yeah. Look over. There's a sign on the back of that tree. And there's a stump over there. Just stump is where it starts. And you go this way and that way. I'm like, well, I'm really glad you were here, guardian angel, to show me exactly where I needed to go at the exact right time.
If you hit him with your axe, would a bunch of gold coins fall out?
The week was full of these crazy exact moment, like perfect timing, kismet, serendipity, like moments. It was magical. It was so manifested. Oh my God. So I go down the path. I get to the hot spring. It was perfect. So it's still pouring down rain. I get in the tub. I get it to the nice warm temperature, moving the hoses around. And so I got this wonderful feeling of my body is super hot and warm and cozy. And my head is like rained on and it's kind of like pitter patter, feels good. And I would do a couple, I would walk down to the river and get a little, do a little cold plunge. At first it was really hard. It was super cold water and it's going really fast. And it's like, the faster the water moves, the faster it's cooling you down. And it was intense. I could get to like my shins almost at first, and then worked my way up my body. And then eventually by the end of it, I was doing full body dunks, staying underneath the water for like 10, 15 seconds. And going back and forth between the tub and that, and it was amazing. But yeah, that took some working up too. The stoner came by and joined me in the pool, the tiled pool next to me, and he was asking about the lower tub. He's like, "Can I use that one?" I'm like, "Yeah, go for it, do it, whatever." And he tried to figure it out too, and he thought that the siphon from the pipe wasn't pulling water down anymore. And he's like, I don't really want to put my lips on it. And I'm like, neither do I. It's all really grimy. It's all really old and yucky. And I'm glad neither of us did, because that's not how the water gets there. There was no siphon needed. And I figured that out later. So that was day 2. And so I walk back in the cold and get back to my tent. It's pouring down rain. It's all kind of gross and stuff. And then day 3. Day 3. The sun comes out. It's like a perfect. I don't know in the C degrees, but in the F degrees, it's like 65, 60 to 65. Which is a little bit on the cool side, but that's great because it was partially cloudy with very sunny, and it was, when the sun hits you, you warm up, and also having the cool air with the hot water feels really good. If the hot air with hot water, like you get really sweaty and burned out of that super quick. Oh man, so I this day I plan on my first psilocybin trip, and I prepared for myself 4 bags of ground mushrooms for, depending on how I wanted things to go, a 2-gram baggie, a 4-gram baggie, and 2 5-gram baggies. The 5-gram is like they call it a heroic dose. It's like the kind of the biggest you want to take. You could probably take more, but it seems like there's not really much of a benefit of taking more than 5 grams. And I've only ever taken probably about 4 grams 3.5, 4 grams at one time before. And that was at a club, and I wasn't prepared for how hard it was going to hit me. And I just ate the mushrooms instead of grinding it up and making a tea. And I hadn't fasted. And so I kind of got nauseous and sick, and I had to go sit down, and it was still a good time, but it was my worst mushroom trip, but it was still a good time. Anyways.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a high ceiling, or was it a high floor?
Yeah, it was a high floor
kind of event. Yeah. So that's fair enough.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool. I was at a club, and like a couple people came by and was like, "Hey, you doing okay?" And it was kind of nice to be brought back to reality. And somebody brought me a bottle of water. I was like, "Holy crap! This is the best water I've ever had." So I plan so I make a fire in the morning. I make a fire. I got my kettle over the top of it, and there's something that feels so cool about boiling water from a fire that you just make out of wood and matches. It's like something primal.
Self-sufficiency feels good.
It feels so good.
Yeah.
So I made my tea with a little lemon and ginger. And once I brewed that, I drove my truck up this time instead of walking up to there's a couple parking spaces at the trailhead. Now I know, and walk my way down. As I'm walking down, it takes about 20 minutes to walk down. I'm sipping my tea, and I get there, and I'm like, I get down to the hot springs. I'm like, I want to check this tub out. This lower tub down by the water, because it's like it's built up about 6 feet off, 5 or 6 feet off of the water, the top of the river, with a bunch of big stones, and it's a clawfoot tub, so it's a super comfortable structure of a tub. And I noticed that one of the pipes, there's just pipes that are just laying around. So there's an overflow of the hot springs from the pools that just kind of goes down the hill, down the rocks into the river. And you're just supposed to kind of like aim this open pipe into that overflow, and then it curves around, and the pipe curves, and then you just kind of aim it to the tub, and it just fills up the tub through natural water flowing downhill. And there was some mud or rocks or whatever in the pipe that just kind of got things stuck, and so it stopped going. And so I was just shaking it around and open it up, and like a bunch of grime comes out, and then it starts flowing like mad. And I was like, oh yes, this is perfect.
I did plumbing.
Yeah. And so first I leave it.
And at this point, how many grams are you on?
So it hasn't really kicked in yet.
Yeah.
I've had about half of my mug, so about 2.5 grams.
Right. So you made, I lost track of where you were with the grammage. Yeah. So you did go for the heroic dose.
Oh yeah. So yes. I took.
You're halfway.
I made on day 3. I made a heroic dose of 5 grams. I only end up drinking about 4.5 grams of it, I think, because there's a little bit left over. Just when I was like, I'm good. This is hitting, and we'll see where it goes. And then
desired effect achieved.
Oh my god, yes! Wow.
We'll get that.
This is a good batch of mushrooms. Oh, I'm so happy with my dealer. I got to find out if he
ships to the UK.
Grows, well, you're gonna get a nice baggie when you go back for sure.
Yeah.
I got to find out if he grows them himself or if he hunts them, because I don't know. I'm just kind of curious.
I hope he's not hunting mushrooms. That's needlessly aggressive.
Foraging. Foraging is the word I meant.
Yeah, foraging. Yeah. Just hunt there with his gun. I'm gonna get you.
Oh my god! I was reading this book at the same time. It's called "Breaking Open the Head" by Daniel Pinchbeck. Fantastic book. And
I know that name. Yeah,
he's a writer for like Vanity Fair and other things. This book had so many of those kismet, serendipitous, what the fuck moments in it. Like I experienced something, and then 2-3 pages or chapters later, he was writing about it, and it was just so mind-blowing. So yeah, so I moved the pipe, and so where the pipe had been left was just like in the middle of the tub, coming out around your midsection, and the water is just kind of filling up in the middle. And I realized, then I realized I can just kind of move it wherever. So I move it into this position where we've talked about it, when you're taking a hot shower, you love getting it right in the back of the neck, just kind of like at the top of the neck, and there's that little soft spot and the little bump in the head. And so I moved it so that when I'm sitting up, it would hit me right there with this fresh hot water coming out. And then when I wanted to relax, it would kind of hit me on the chest, neck area. And I would just kind of lay down and bask in it coming. And it's an infinite sourced water source of perfectly temperatured hot salt water coming into this clawfoot tub in the middle of the nature, with the river running by, like 30-foot tall trees and birds going by, like a whole bunch of different types of birds and other things. Oh my God. The fucking perfect place to do mushrooms. Like, I couldn't have stumbled into anything better. Like, it was so comfortable. God. So I'm drinking the rest of my tea, and and it's starting to hit, and then I don't quite finish it. I got about 4.5 grams, which was plenty. And vision I quested. So with my first trip, I go on another trip later. My first trip, I was just kind of like, what's gonna happen? Like, I don't know. Let's just see. I'm just going to take the maximum, and we'll find out what happens. And, also, wanting to connect with nature, wanting to, find out what all this stuff is about, and like learn. And, I'm interested in shamanism. I'm interested in spirituality. I'm interested in these things. I have my mind open and stuff. And how to even describe it? Words are not enough.
Let's try this. What do you know now that you did not know
so much
before?
So much. So right now I'm trying to remember like the first trip, because the second trip expanded on things a bunch. But for my first trip, it was like, you've been playing around with this idea that we're all one thing. We're all connected. We're all one. It's like, no, really, that is it. Like, we are all one organism. It is one symbiotic thing. We are all super connected in this material world. Everything depends on each other. Like, it's that's just it. We're all one. We're all we got. We are each other. I am everything. Oh, one thing that was huge revelation to me is like, I am the divine was a mantra that came up many times for me. Everything is divine, and I am the divine. And divine came up to me as a feminine word, which was really interesting and felt so right. And like, if it had gender at all, it would be a feminine word, but it's not. Like, divine isn't gendered. Like, they don't care about that shit. It's we're just creation, but like creation.
I know where you're coming from. Though.
Yeah, exactly. It feels feminine, and like, and
I think that, and you use the word creation there as well. And I think that there's probably no coincidence there that men have limited input into the creation of life.
Yeah. We make our deposit.
There's a little bit that we do early doors, but apart from that, it's all on the woman.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't seem surprising that would come up.
Yeah. Everything is.
So we are all divine, and you are the divine.
Yes. Everything is good and as it should be. You don't need to worry about it. It's just it's we're not doing anything wrong. We're doing this is all not an experiment, but we're just meant to go and do. We're just here to be. Like, we just to get to exist. There's no point. There's no problem. Even computers and technology and synthetic chemicals and poisons. Like, they're all still a part of creation. They're part of the earth. They're part of the things. We're connected to them. They're not all good for us to ingest, but they're all like, we all just exist in this world together, and we are the organic, we are the synthetic, we are the everything. Everything is everything. Spoilers. No, not spoilers. We've talked about it many times, but the spoilers is spoilers, I guess, for something that's coming up. Okay, so I start coming out of the another thing, something that happened that came up in the book that I do remember, because I have a note right here that I can reference. One of the first time, I did. I'm so happy, dude.
Two levels deep into the tangent.
I'm so
We've got this.
Happy.
I've got the rope. I can pull you back. It's good.
About 6 months ago, I did a Sadhguru meditation where it was a breathwork exercise and mantra to chant at the same time. And I did it in the sauna. It took about 30 minutes. And at that point, I started to leave my body. I went to what felt like a different kind of outer space, where I was approached by two other beings, and they had kind of like tentacles, and they were like they were ghastly, and they kind of glowed like they were like they had stars, like they were their own universes. Like I was conversing with two other universes, and I was also one of them, and we all kind of had tentacles, and we were kind of flowing and weird. And that was massive and cool. And we just kind of had like a little giggle together, like, isn't this fun? And then on this mushroom trip, snap back to last week, I had that same experience. I had a very similar experience where part of my vision was seeing these kind of otherworldly tentacles waving around and engulfing and spreading and being all cool and weird. And I was like, tentacles again, huh? All right. Well, sure. And then, later that day, or the next morning, I started reading the next chapter of Breaking Open the Head, and he had taken an ayahuasca trip and noted the palpable presence of tentacles in his visions. And I was just like, what now? So that was really interesting. That was just another one of the reoccurring and kismet kind of happenings. So I start coming out of this first trip, and I came to this vision quest to kind of like write about God mode and figure out what I wanted to do with things and everything. But that was kind of like a loose goal. Not loose, but like I wasn't married to needing to write about God mode at that time. I was just like, if I feel inspired, that would be a great thing to have happen. So I had my notebook with me, and I was like, as I was still kind of high, I was like, do I want to write yet? Oh man, I don't feel like writing. Do I want to write yet? No, not yet. I'm still kind of out of it. I'm just gonna, still see what happens and all this, and then at a certain point, I'm like, no, I got to write some of this stuff down. I got things coming out of me. I just gotta kind of jot them down for later.
You got tentacles coming at you.
I would like to share with you some of my writings, if that's okay.
That is the most convergence thing that any of us has said so far. Yes. And I'm here for it.
Okay. So
I would like to share with you some of my writings.
Dude, I just can't. I love this so much, and I hope you do too. And if you don't, I actually do want to hear your feedback.
I can't wait.
So some of it came out as like kind of rants and just kind of writings. A lot of it came out as poetry, unintentionally. And I even wrote it in a way, you know how poetry kind of like goes all over the page and like there's interesting like structure to it and stuff, and like just like, you know, goes down and like that just like happened. I didn't plan it. I haven't really written poetry since like high school, and I've always been really stuck on this particular, because I like writing poetry for songs. I have this particular structure of how I want like the rhyming pattern to be, always A, B, A, B. It's like almost always that way. And if I can get multiple rhymes within, you know, lines sharing like Eminem does and stuff, then great. But otherwise, I'm so married to that, and it's hard to break free. And I finally, with the mushrooms, just helped me break free of that, which just felt incredible. I'm not going to read everything because actually I am going to be making these into songs, but I have like 3 or 4 that I really want to read to you and that I think that you'll get a kick out of. This one, this is just called Thesis, and it's not, I don't really think I'm going to turn this one into a song, but this one is the first stuff I wrote as I'm coming out of being high. And I'm like, I've got a wet hand and I'm like trying not to ruin my book. So I'm like stretched out my arm, like trying to write. And also I'm high. So I'm like, it's amazing I can even read what I wrote down, but it's actually pretty legible. When I edit this for music and stuff later, I'm going to be doing some word changes and stuff to kind of make it not so repetitive. But in the moment, like the singular message was so clear, and I used the same words over and over and over again. And so it does get a bit repetitive, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm going to change that. But here's kind of the stuff as it was written, as it came out of my mushroom head. We forget because we have to. It's our quest to remember in our own way. Polyrhythms, because that's what we made. The thing we forget is that we are the fungus. We are everything. It's interesting to forget. We are the divine. Divine. Let go and remember the we. It's all perfect, even forgetting. That's the point. It's interesting. We forget because it's interesting, but fuck, it feels good to remember. We are everything. I am the divine.
The use of the word interesting there, like it's such a like practical kind of prosaic word. It's interesting how that fell in there with everything else.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting to remember. That's curious.
This one's called Bad Things. Synthetic is just a part of me too. Why do we do bad things to ourselves? Because it's interesting. We get extreme with it. We forget. We're all one. We're all the divine. We are. I did this because it's interesting. You, me, I, we, same thing. We get it. We know what's up. We do bad things to ourselves because it's interesting. We made the universe fantastic, but it's our nature to do bad things. So then we coated it with plastic. We build, destroy. It's interesting. It's a synthetic. Why do we do bad things? It's an art. Official. The game we like to play to give ourselves a thrill. We are the doom we endlessly scroll, the oil and gas we squeeze from the soil. We lick ourselves clean and high, Ouroboros tail cannot hide.
There's some playfulness in there in that language. There are some. We are picking up some themes.
Yes.
There are some themes developing here.
Yeah.
What are we forgetting?
Yeah, I will get to that, or I can say that now too.
Excellent.
I actually wrote. I realized that to me it made so much sense as I'm writing it, but later I was like, it's not quite clear what we're remembering or forgetting, and so I wrote one later, and it came out more like a rant, and it's going to be. I think it's going to be kind of like a meditation track, not a but like a. It's going to be like a speaking track over some meditation music. But I'll say, so I'll get to that one. But briefly, I'll say what we remember and forget is that we forget that we're all one organism. We're all the same thing. We are the divine. We are the creation. We are that God is not a separate being that we should worship. It is us. Like God is creation and created us. Just like when a mother births a child, like the baby was in the mom, they were the one same thing, and then the baby comes out. It's still, the same organism. It's just now separated. Like two cells, they divide. They were the same cell. Now they're two cells. It's all the kind of the same thing. The separation, like we feel separate from God and the divine, and what we forget is that we are actually still the same thing. Okay, so this one's called Impermanence.
The main thesis, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Impermanence. The point is to have forgotten and then to remember. Sometimes I want to remember, sometimes I want to forget. All of me wants to remember, but the game is to forget. I am all of it, so it's all good. The destruction of mankind, inevitable. And what could be more beautiful? Remember decay. It's part of rebirth. Rebirth is when we forget. Then we get to play the game again. Remember. Forget again. The decay. Don't look away. Admire the decay. That will be you someday. Don't look away. Nothing is here to stay. We are so afraid to remember. Why? It feels embarrassing to forget, to have forgotten. That's the point. But we forget that too. Sometimes we remember differently, and that's okay. It's karma. It's fun to remember, but the point is to forget. We get too embarrassed to admit that we're embarrassed we forget. The ego wants to play. Nothing is here to stay. Admire the decay. That will be you someday.
Are you aware of the game?
I don't know what you mean to as the game.
Then you are not aware of the game. That's fine.
I think I have heard of the game. I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. It's something about once you...
And you...
Yeah, I forget about the game.
Listener and I have now lost the game.
Right, because we talked about the game?
Replaying it. Because we remember
we remember the game. Oh, yeah. Shoot.
Yeah, the object of the game is to not remember that the game exists. As soon as you remember that you are playing the game, you have lost the game, and you start again at zero.
Well, I went a good long time.
And
thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, well done. You see, the problem I have is that every now and again someone will talk to me about forgetting something, and then I will remember that I forgot about Dre. And then
Y'all know me.
In remembering that I forgot about Dre, I will then remember that I'm playing the game, and thus I will lose the game.
And Dre signed the game to Interscope.
You see, everything is everything. And it is interesting to ponder on that connection and to think about in again a slightly maybe mushroomy kind of way of like, maybe there is something very real in the game.
Yeah.
The object of the game is to forget.
Everything is everything.
Which I thought was quite fun.
Yeah. So I told you there were two tubs, two cast iron tubs. One of them was perfectly situated in this pile of boulders and rock solid and just amazing. The other one either was placed down at the river level or had eroded away and fallen into within the river level. and it was broken and rusted and grimy from the overflow of the salt water just going right into it, and it just looked gross. She's like, I'm going to stay away. It kind of even had like kind of that oily sheen to it that comes from just like natural, whatever algae or I don't know was coming onto it or whatever. But so at first I was like, oh, I don't want to look at it and touch it or whatever. But while I was on mushrooms, I looked over and saw it, and I just admired how fucking gorgeous it was, just eroding away and becoming new things later on. Like that iron is going into the river, and that's going to like be ingested by somebody, and then it's going to like, it has a life path, it continues on. And it made me think of my own mortality and how, I'm going to be, in the ground, and my cells will become something else. And even through just normal like digestion and other things, like stuff comes in and goes out of me, and the ego is so fixated on this lifetime because that's all the ego gets. But we are more than the ego, and we still carry on. And so like we recycle, we get to start again. And that's what like, and that's restarting the game. It's like we're then reborn. We have a new ego now in a new body. We're born, and we go on and we do something as either a human or a rat or a tree or whatever, and then we're playing the game again as this new thing. We've forgotten that we are the divine, and we can either remember or not remember, and either way is great. It's just an experience. The point is to go through life and have an experience. Yeah.
As you were talking earlier, I was thinking about what's the point of an electron? It just buzzes around its, with its proton, neutron buddies and its Higgs bosons.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think, many of us when we were learning physics sort of thought, why is it doing that? Mm-hmm. There's a certain level at which we stop asking why, because we're just like, so that's how these things are made up.
Yeah.
I think that gets interesting in terms of trying to figure out our place in this system. It's like, yeah, you could ask that, but you could also ask, why does a
chicken cross the
a neutron spin around an electron or whatever? We've decided because it does, but maybe someone's dug into why that happens.
Yeah.
But actually we kind of just accept it, but we don't necessarily just accept our place in a larger ecosystem.
Yeah. Why is the planet why does the planet circle around a sun? Why do galaxies spin around within the universe?
Well, we've got gravity that we can say there.
Sure. In that,
for a larger system.
Yeah, in the sense of how, but not why.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah. Why? Yeah. Why do gravity? Yeah. Wow. So, are you seeing the world in any different way, either subtle or overt?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel lighter, more purposeful, more secure and confident. At one point after my second trip, or during my second trip, I was like, why am I afraid of people? Like, I don't need to be afraid of other people. Like, they're not going to hurt me. Like, sure, there are some bad people that would do that, but like, that's generally not happening. If they have a problem, that's on them. And like, I can just be me. And so when I did my second trip, I repeated the whole thing. I made another 5 gram dose. I came down to the tub. This time I just stripped naked because it's in the middle of nature and there's like hardly anybody coming around. And I'm just sunbathing out. And it's like, and I'm in the tub and like, it's kind of away from other people. I'm not really bothering people with my nudity. But even if they were to come, like, who gives a shit? This is what I was born in. I'm actually this. Every every animal is just out naked too. We're all just animals in this world. Like it's just a social convention that we think that we should be covered up. And I'm like, why would I be afraid of just being me? And so I don't feel nearly as afraid of that anymore. Like I feel way more confident in many things. I feel more after the second trip, especially because the first trip I went in, I was like, what's going to happen? The second trip, I'm like, okay, I've got questions.
I like the idea of you like rolling up to the universe with like a clipboard and like, right, yeah. let's get this sorted.
It was a bit like that, yeah. And what was also funny is that my ego was really trying to also take control a bit, because that time, so I was both fasting from food and fasting from anything digital. So I wasn't using my phone. I wasn't listening to music, podcasts, anything like that. I just had books were the only thing I allowed myself. And I brought freaking like 12 books with me, and I got like 3/4 of the way through one book, but it was the perfect book. It was the exact book I was supposed to be reading at that time, which is amazing. But then Margaret visited after my halfway through the trip. Margaret visited for the weekend, and we just had a glorious time just being present with each other, out at the tub, spent all day out there, had a fantastic time, came back and made some s'mores, which was the first time I'd ever had s'mores. I've only ever had s'mores flavored things before. And so that was fun. And then, but honestly, I kind of like just each individual thing by itself a lot better. I like a toasted marshmallow, and then having a graham cracker, and then having like we used a raspberry filled cashew butter chocolate bar that was super delicious, and then some Justin's brand, which is like a fancy Whole Foods type brand, peanut butter cup, and use those for the s'mores, and those were amazing. It was perfect, but I would have rather had the individual. And later, when I had leftovers, I just had the individual stuff. It was better. Anyways, not the point. I went off my fast. Margaret was sharing some podcasts with me. I was just kind of like, I did my super fast. I did my, breaking off everything for like 4 days. That experiment has run its course. That was great. I'm now like, I'm happy to listen to some music again. Like that'll be good. I made a little playlist of some meditation music and some Ram Dass and Elena Brower and Above and Beyond, and just a bunch of stuff that's like really truly core to me and who I am right now. And I even put some Alan Watts in there, but it didn't download in time. But I had to go 5 or 6 miles away. I had to drive away to the nearest town to get some cell reception to be able to download stuff, and I wasn't like doing that a lot. So went there, got some music, came back, and I had a little speaker that I nestled underneath some rocks right by my head. And for the second trip, I put on this playlist and put it on. And so as I'm getting into the good highness of it and really being teleported to consciousness, to the divine, Elena Brower's meditation comes on, and this is a 5 song, so it's about 15 to 20 minutes meditation of her speaking of all these wonderful truths and guides on how to be spiritual and how to be loving and a good human. And it's been a mantra. I've listened to it probably 400 times in the past 4 years, because it's been a centering, guiding light and principle for me. It's really beautiful. And as I'm getting into this high, I'm starting to feel my connection with spirit, and they tell me like, yeah, we know this, like this is, and you know this too. Like, do we need to be listening to her right now, or do you want to talk to her or talk to us?
Who's saying this?
Spirit. I don't have names for them.
Right.
They kind of like
Are these the tentacles?
They didn't appear as tentacles to me on my second trip. It was I could feel presence of entities. And in all, it was kind of like there was kind of like 4 or 5 of us in it, that we were all kind of hanging out together. But yeah, I didn't have names for them. It kind of felt like different parts of nature, like maybe like a tree spirit and a rock spirit and an earth spirit, or like a water spirit and an air spirit, that kind of vibe a bit. And man, they were just so happy and playful and joyous, and like we had so many good laughs together. We had such a great time. It was the best buddy hangout fucking chill session ever. So finally Elena stops talking, and then the rest of it was just some
ruining your buddy time. Finally, yeah. She shuts the fuck up.
Yeah,
and I can dance with these spirits.
Yeah, and it's just speechless meditation music for the next like 2 hours, and these spirits speak through me, and that, like I speak out loud because of what they're saying to me, and they're answering a bunch of these questions that I don't have like specific like written out questions. I just kind of have areas that I have questions about. I have questions about God mode and shamanism and like purpose of life and what I should be doing, and if it's okay to do things. Oh my God, one of my questions after I'd heard some things, I asked, is it okay for me to share this with others? Like, this is so interesting. This is so fascinating. I'm learning so much. Can I tell other people about what I've experienced?
Sorry, I have to. I'm not mocking you at all. It's just I'm not laughing at you. I just had this absolute moment of. So just before we go, any plugs? Like I really just had that sense of like. So have you got a LinkedIn that you want to say? I love it.
Even better than that is the spirit's response, which I cannot tell you how hard. I've never laughed so hard. It was full, deep body, guttural, everything. It was wonderful because I was like, I'm pretty sure there's nobody around for miles, so I can just let myself go. And I just had the biggest laugh ever. God, it felt so good. Spirit said, yeah, just don't make a religion out of it. And it was in this energy of like, we've tried that before. People got carried away. Just don't make a religion out of it.
Hey, Brendan. Hey, Brendan.
Yeah.
Don't be weird about it.
I know. That came to mind too. Oh my God. Oh, I love it. Everything is everything. Oh my God. Oh, it still cracks me up. My side hurts now. Just don't make a religion out of it. And I because I asked, like, I was asking about God mode, and I was like, am I somebody to lead others, or am I somebody to show things to other people and stuff? And it's like, I got the message. I'm not a leader. I'm not a charismatic leader. I'm not the person to be the forefront or the name of something or whatever. Like, yeah, God mode is cool. God mode is great. Go for it. That's good stuff. Like, do it. But like, you're not going to be building a new world order with this. Like, you're not. Don't think of it too big, and try hard, but don't try too hard. Like, kind of thing. Don't worry about it. Just have fun with it. That was really the main point I got from that.
That's very good advice, I think.
I think so too. I felt really good about it. And yeah, and then the group of spirits were all like, so like the way that I kind of understand it is like there's this material realm, and then there's a spirit realm, and like there might be infinite spirits. I have no idea. This physical brain and entity, through taking the door of psilocybin through these mushrooms, was able to perceive a small fraction of whatever else is going on out there.
That was my thinking earlier, is you experienced some unfiltered perception.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's what this book has been saying a lot, is it's like we all have it within us to be able to access this other realm. It's just kind of dormant because we don't want it. We don't need it. It's not the point. The point is for us to live out human lives. The point is for us to live out material realm things. We're not, because this is the game that we're playing. We are the spirit, and we're playing a game with ourselves to forget and have a material existence, play that out, fall in love, experience heartbreak, hate things, forlorn, and stub your toe, and buy a silly hat, do taxes, make up stupid rules, and disobey them, and like do all the things. It's fun. We're just having a good time. This is all just a game. And then when this mortal coil shuffles, or whatever it does, we go back to spirit and we connect again, and then we can play the game again, if we want to. I have at least 2 more of these I really want to read to you. This one's shorter. It's called "Even Heaven Must Burn." Oh my fucking God. Oh, I'm fucking God. It's interesting to remember. I'm sorry. It's interesting to forget. It's heaven to remember. To remember is divine. We are the divine. Even heaven must burn down to rise again. To rise again. We 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 rise. Again. We rise again. We rise again. Even heaven must burn. Even heaven must burn. That one's similar to the decay, but a little bit different in that, part of me was thinking, I'm sitting in this tub with this perfect temperature water hitting me on the neck, and I'm soaking in it. I'm on the river. I'm in the trees. I'm with the birds. I got fresh air. I've got filtered water with lemon and salt in my bottle. I've got everything I need. I've got the sunshine, and it feels so amazing. And I cannot stay here forever. Like, this feels great, but I'm going to get tired of it. I'm going to get bored. If I was just always here, it's too much good. I need to experience other things. I want to go back home someday. I want to play video games again. I want to read books. I want to sit on my couch. I want to hug my wife. I want to go shopping. I want to do all these normal, boring things. Not, those weren't the normal, boring things. Other normal, boring things. And so, yeah, you got to even leave heaven. And that's why we do. That's, as spirits. That's why we come down to here as a material being, is because, yeah, it's heaven up there. It's everything. We think a bathtub in nature is great. Wait till we get back up to the spirit realm. That's just perfection. And it's boring. So let's have fun. Let's play a game. Let's go be a human for a bit.
So I think I was thinking of a separation between these spirits and humans.
Mm-hmm.
But to your perception, the spirits are the humans that are currently spending their cycle in heaven, experiencing the hot springs.
Some people,
and at some point,
some people like have a mental model of spirit babies. Like Margaret and I were just reading this book called Spirit Babies, where you there is a particular spirit that will then come and inhabit a baby as it's being born. And it's kind of like, oh, it's the soul or whatever. And it's that consciousness or whatever. And that's an interesting thought. To me, that doesn't resonate very much. I maybe just because I haven't had the right experiences, but it just that mental model doesn't ring true. Another beautiful metaphor that Cameron shared with me is this short story called The Egg. And in it, I'm going to spoil it a bit, but it's really worth a read. It's linked in the show notes, listener. A person dies and they come up to heaven and they're like, oh my God, I died? What happened? Wait, what? And there's a person there like Peter or whatever at the pearly gates, and it's like, oh yeah, so great. So you went through here, you did this and that, and that's great. Okay, now you're going to go back. You're going to go back as a little girl in 500 BC, and they're like, wait, what? Like, wait, I'm going back, and I'm going back in time, and like, and then the Peter or the God or whatever is explaining to the spirit, like, yeah, you're going to go be reborn and live out every single human lifetime on Earth. And once you do that from the beginning to the end of time, then you will be a God. You are a spirit, you are a baby now, and you have to go through every life experience to graduate to the level of God. And I thought that story is really beautiful, and it's informed kind of how I think about things a lot. And it's like not linear, it doesn't have to be, time. Oh yeah. That was a big thing that I really like. Time is just like, we experience time because that's the way that the material realm is structured. But like the spirit realm doesn't really seem to experience time, or at least not how we perceive it, which was interesting. But it seems like we don't experience time in the way that we perceive it within our own universe, like depending on how fast we're going and how much gravity there is around and other things like that. That's way outside my pay grade, but I don't know. Interstellar had a lot of funky things going on.
Yeah. And I watched a video recently about what would a 4-dimensional object look like. And this is, I think, discounting the possibly rather arbitrary thing that we say the fourth, time is the fourth dimension. I think they were sort of ignoring that because that feels perhaps like a bit of a kludge because we have, basically up, down, left, right, back and forth. But what if we had a fourth one?
Yeah.
And how might we perceive that? And it was interesting because, we can't show that, but what we can show is what does a 3-dimensional object look like if you can only perceive 2 dimensions. And a 3-dimensional object perceived with only 2 dimensions looks like like a sphere looks like a circle. It just looks like a flat circle, and all this kind of stuff. And so it gets interesting because there are things there. It's like colors. We can't, Dave Gorman, comedian that I like a lot, he's one of my favorites, tried to write a book about a man who could see an 8th color.
Okay.
And the problem he encountered was that you can't write about something that you can't describe because we only have the 7. Terry Pratchett did the same thing. He had a color called Octarine, which was the 8th color, which was created because the magic sort of dome over the disc world split the light into 8 instead of 7. And instead, it's the same problem. How do you describe a color that doesn't exist? How can we perceive? How can we begin to think about or perceive what another dimension might look like? It's a sort of fun way to spin your head off.
For sure. I've tried watching some YouTube videos on the fourth dimension stuff too, and like Neil deGrasse Tyson explaining it and stuff. And there's the Tesseract, which can like fold in on itself and around, and it's interesting, but it's also like, yeah, it's still just a model. It's still just and then even that, and then I'm watching a 2-dimensional video trying to explain the fourth dimension using quote unquote 3 dimensions. It's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing is happening.
Wow. I'd like to get off soon, but I would very much like to hear your final piece.
Yeah, you're gonna like this. This one's called "Everything Is Everything." We build, we make, we create. We are God. We are creation. We are everything. We are all just trying to compute 42. What's inside always comes out. There are no secrets. We know. Everything is perfect. It's like I planned it this way. I am we are me. Everything is perfect. I am perfect. I am everything. Everything is everything. Everything is everything. Ownership is an abstraction. How could you own yourself? You are not property. You are everything. What you make is what you are, is what you do, is what you think, is what you wish, is what you feel, is what you know. Everything is everything. Is everything, is everything, is everything, is everything, is everything, is.
Something hit me there about ownership as an abstraction.
Yeah.
What that made me think about is I've been finding myself pivoting away from, for want of a better word, education and trying to educate. And trying to say, these are the things that you should do and this and that. Not because I don't agree with them, but I think part of it is about maybe the proprietorial nature that we can have about knowledge. And, well, this is my idea. And as we've talked about in the world of everything is everything, which I think is, as much as it's, it's a whatever, tautological snake eats itself phrase. I think it as much as we might have tossed it off. I think it there is really something to that. When you realize that everything is everything, it becomes harder to attach your own ego to a particular idea.
Yeah,
and then just sort of say, yeah, but. If someone wants to say, well, I think, podcast marketing is made up of these 3 pillars and this person over here says, well, actually, I think podcast marketing is made up of 3 columns. And it's like, okay, what is, are you going to spend time saying, well, you stole my idea? Or is it like, yeah, no, you both plucked it from the like you plucked a bit from over there. You plucked a bit from over there. It's okay.
Yeah.
Let's not focus so much on and it's like, if that is what you trade in, then you have a trickier life and a trickier way of because it's closer to a commodity. An idea is a commodity. It's tradable. Presence or the way you communicate those ideas is valuable and not commoditizable in the same way. In a world of AI where we are now I think we are going to enter a world where the idea of proprietary information, I think, could disappear.
Yeah.
The idea of provenance of information, the idea of when everything has become sucked into, and this is not a judgment, this is not a good or a bad thing, this is just a, thing.
It all just is.
It all just is. When we start inhabiting a world where you can ask Google or another entity for an answer, ask it a question and get an answer back that has been formed from years of people typing things on the internet, but just comes back as an answer with no citations, with nothing like that. It just becomes knowledge. It just becomes stuff that is in the universe, the the cloud. And you can spend your time railing against that, and you can spend your time going, that shouldn't be the case. The cat is already out of the bag. Those arguments are already moot because the stuff is in the cloud already. What those of us who have dealt in ideas, and I speak as someone who's only really dealt in ideas for the last 3 years, before I had a product, I made a thing. And in a sense now I try and help people with ideas, like in the same way that those of us whose stock and trade, I think, has been ideas, and this might be the same for you as well with God Mode. It's like, sure, let's have our way of packaging up the ideas and putting them into a thing, but give that away for free. Make the thing, and make it really good, but make the thing that you charge for your curation, your presence, the stuff about those ideas that can't be replicated, and the stuff that changes based on your observation of it and your interaction with it. That's what is far more valuable, what comes from your experience and what changes as a result of people interacting with it. So yeah, I really I leapt straight into the proprietary nature of ideas, or not the nature, but our tendency to hold on to them, to say, this is my idea. And I think, I appreciate that.
I do too.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.